Welcome to Knitting 101 with Christina from apinchoffaith.com. So today I'm going to be showing you some very basic techniques for knitting. This is a video for somebody that has never picked up needles and yarn before. So today I'm going to be showing you just with two very simple needles. Mine are double pointed because I use them for sock knitting. But if you're looking for needles, you can find some that are just blunt on one end and pointy on the other. And I'm just using a nice bright green yarn here so that you can see the contrast between the yarn and the needles. So this is going to be showing you first off how to cast on. So you're going to take your wool, or your yarn, sorry. Let me just get this in focus here. Okay. And you're just going to make a little knot and a loop. Put that on your needle. Okay, and now we're going to be casting on. So this is quite easy. There's multiple ways of casting on, but this is the way that I learned, and I find it easy not only to do, but it's quick. And there may be other knitters out there that say it's not the best way, but honestly, it works fine for me. So what you're going to do is hold your needle in your right hand and the yarn in your left. You're going to take a nice big piece, put your finger in like this. You're almost making a loop. Twist the loop and put the needle in that little loop and give it a nice little tug. So you've just cast on one stitch. And to do it again, making a loop. Where my finger is, that's the little loop, and you're putting the needle between the yarn and your finger. That's another loop. So we've cast on a total of 3 stitches, including our first. Let's do a couple more. So again, we're just taking the yarn with our pointer finger, making a little loop, putting the needle in, and giving it a little tug. So we've got some stitches cast on here. Now let's actually begin knitting. So you're going to transfer the needle to your left hand. Let me just zoom in a bit here. So we're going to pick up our needle with our right hand. This is the needle with no stitches on it. And what we're going to do is into the first loop on the needle. You're kind of making a T shape with your needles. The needle in your right hand is on the bottom, and the needle in your left hand is on the top. So now you're going to take your yarn from the ball, which is called your working yarn. And this part's a little fiddly, but it does get easier with practice. So you're going to take this yarn, wrap it under and over the bottom needle. Oops. Under and over. And now you're going to carefully remove your right hand needle and sort of bring it up over. Okay? And now you're going to carefully slide the loop off. So now you've got one stitch knitted onto your right needle. So we're going to try that again. Taking the right hand needle, we're inserting the tip of that needle in the loop on the left needle. So it's going in and under, so we're making a little T shape. And we're taking the working yarn, wrapping it under, over, and I like to draw it parallel to the right hand needle just to keep it nice and taut. Oops, there we go. And now we're pulling the right hand needle out from underneath the left needle and on top of the left needle, sorry. And we're going to carefully slide it off. So now you've got 2 stitches knit onto your right hand needle. So let's try that again. Right hand needle going in that little loop there, making a T shape. And now we're wrapping under, over, and drawing it nice and tight. And now moving the right needle carefully out from underneath, but still keeping it in the little loop. And we're going on top of the left needle and taking it off to the right hand side. So now we've got 3 stitches knit on our right hand needle. We've got 3 left on the left hand needle, so let's try that again. There we go. And this does look a little bit fiddly, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. And I should put a disclaimer out there, I am not an expert at knitting. I've been knitting for a couple years, but I'm completely self-taught, so my technique may be a little sloppy, but honestly, this is the way that works for me. So hopefully it works for you as well. So we're getting to our last stitch on the left needle, so we're going to wrap the yarn again. Carefully switch the positions of the needle and slide off. So now we've got no stitches on our left hand needle and all our stitches on our right needle. So we've just done 1 row. Yay! So now the stitches on the needle, or the needle with the stitches in your right hand, now put that in your left hand. And now the empty needle goes into your right. Okay, so we're just going to do that again, same process. Remember that the wool or the yarn that you are knitting from is called your working yarn. This is the little tail that we cast on with, so we are not knitting from this, we are knitting from this, which is attached to a nice big ball of yarn. I use the terms yarn and wool interchangeably. Yarn is a mixture of different fabric or fibers. Wool is from animals that give wool, like sheep or alpaca, just in case there's any confusion. So we're going to do the same process again. We're putting our right hand needle, which has no stitches on it, underneath that first loop. We're making kind of a T shape, and then we're taking our working yarn and we are wrapping it under and over, pulling it down so it's in line with our right hand needle. We're carefully moving the right hand needle out from under, putting it on top of the left, and then carefully pulling that and our new stitch off onto the right needle. So we're going to do that again. Now, I know most knitters start off making something easy, like a little washcloth or a dish towel, but in all honesty, when I was learning how to knit, the first thing I made was a scarf. I liked that because it was a longer project, so it gave me more time to practice my stitching. It was not a very good finished product, but I still enjoyed the process anyways. So you're just going to keep knitting and knitting, and when you get to the end of all your stitches on your right hand that have been transferred onto your right hand needle, we're going to transfer that needle back to our left hand and start all over again. So you can see here that we've got a nice little row of worked stitches, and you're just going to continue in this way. If you want to make a scarf, you can knit as long as you want, make it as long as you want. If you are making a scarf, you might want it a little bit wider than 6 stitches. So in that case, you would just cast on more stitches, which we showed at the beginning of the video. And depending on the wool or the yarn that you use, you will get thicker or thinner stitches, and also depending on the needles, but that's something for a whole other video. This is a nice yarn weight because it's fairly easy to use, it's not too chunky, and the needles I'm using are a size 6mm. So there's some More stitches cast on there. Now I'm going to quickly show you how to bind off your stitches, because if we were to just stop stitching this now and slide it off the needles, all of our stitching would come undone, and we don't want that. So this is what's known as binding off. And again, there's probably better videos, better ways of doing this, but this is the way that I learned and it works well for me. So, oh, excuse me, I have an itchy nose. All right, so we're going to continue as if we were knitting. So our right hand needle goes underneath and in that little loop on the left needle, first stitch on the left needle. We're going to knit and take that stitch off, okay? And we're going to do that one more time. Slide it off. So now we have 2 stitches on our right hand needle and the rest on the left hand. But instead of making another stitch on the left hand needle, we're going to take this stitch here, slide it over, and that's going to finish it off so it won't come unraveled. So this is kind of fiddly, but it does get easier with practice. So we're going to stick the tip of our left hand needle into the loop on the very first stitch that we did. See that? So just stick it in there and carefully bring this loop over the other loop that's on your needle and pull. So now we have 1 stitch missing from here. It's down here now, it's bound off, that means it won't come undone. So we're going to again do another stitch, making another stitch on our right hand needle. When you're binding off, you want 2 stitches on your left hand needle because you're always going to be crossing one over. Pass the stitch over is the proper term. And like I said, it's a little fiddly. Even though I've been knitting for a few years, I still struggle with this sometimes, and having long nails does not help. So the needle is in that stitch. We're going to carefully cross it over the existing stitch on the needle. And you'll notice the number of stitches we have has been decreasing. So we originally had 4 here and 2 here. Now we've got 1 and 3. So we're going to continue binding off, making sure we always have 2 stitches on the right hand needle. And we're going to carefully insert the needle into that loop on the right hand side, pass it over, give it a little tug. So knit, so there's 2 stitches on the right hand needle. Insert the tip of the, oh goodness, left hand needle into the first stitch on the right needle. And just pass that over. So now we have 1 stitch on our right and 1 stitch on our left. So we're going to put both of those stitches onto the right hand needle, like so. And we're going to do the same thing. Careful not to let the other stitches fall off the end of that needle there. So we're going to pass that first stitch over. There we go. So you'll see that we have all of our stitches onto our right hand needle. We've bound them all off. There they are right there. A nice clean edge. It's not going to come undone. So now we've got 1 stitch left on our right hand needle. What we're going to do is get a pair of scissors and cut a decent sized tail from your working yarn. Okay, now this is also a little fiddly, but again, like with everything else we're doing, it just takes a little bit of practice. Carefully slide your needle out of the loop. Okay, take the little tail that you've just cut, and we're just going to make a little knot using that loop and that tail. Okay, so we've just tied that in a little knot. I like to do a double knot just to be safe. And that's it. So this is the tail that we just cut. I'm going to cut it even further because we don't need a big tail. And then this piece is the tail from when we first cast on our stitches. So again, don't need that. I'm going to cut that off a little bit. So this may not look like much. It's just a teeny little swatch, but for the sake of time I did it just this small. But this is a great way to practice your stitches. You can do several swatches, you know, maybe a little bit bigger, a few inches by a few inches, and then if you get really ambitious, you can knit all of those into a patchwork scarf or a blanket, or just keep them just for fun. So hopefully you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If it's something you enjoyed and would like to see more of in the future, just let us know in the comments and I'll see what I can do. So again, it's Christina from A Pinch of Faith. I hope you enjoyed this Knitting 101 video.